Angie,
John.
have you heard what's been coming down the grapevine?
Oh, the grapevine. No.
It's not grapes, I can tell you that. There's some things going on. And I don't know if you have any friends who are working for those bigger coaching firms, but things seem to be slowing down and it seems to be creating a little bit of panic for people. And I thought, maybe that's something you and I could talk about.
Oh, I definitely think we should because, yes, I didn't know which grapevine you were talking about, but I definitely have heard some grumblings.
Well, let's see if we can address some of the things that are going on there and perhaps give a little bit of forward-thinking planning to the people who may be finding themselves in those panic stations right now.
Good idea. I'm there. So
Welcome
tell
to
me
the
though,
Coaching
so what have
Clinic
you
with
heard?
John
What is
and
the
Angie.
overall
Show for
challenge
professional
that you've been
coaches
hearing
want
about?
to develop their skills
Well,
and
it's
grow
not
their
it's not
business.
new
Follow the
because
show
I've been
on your
hearing
favourite
this
podcast app.
in
And
bits
join
and
us every
pieces from
Wednesday for
various
new
people for the
episodes.
last 6 months and more, that a lot of people who've gone into working for these bigger coaching organizations have not been getting enough work. Some of them to the point where they've left and gone and done jobs. It's not the kind of job you have to quit. It's like they'll send you clients if you're on their list. But if you're not getting anything come through, then what's the point? So many other people have just moved on to other things, and understandably so. But undoubtedly, there was a bunch of people who were still doing pretty well from them and not so keen to move on. And even those people now are saying things have been slowing down a lot. Now, there could be a bunch of reasons for this. And certainly, economy is part of the reason for this. International trade is part of the reason for this. And other operators in the industry may be partly responsible as well. But the end result is the same, that the work is drying up in these organizations. That may change, but it's not looking good at the moment.
Well, so really quick, I think something you and I have discussed and we've definitely spoken to is that there is a lot of competition in the market. So it's not just competition with individual sole proprietor coaches, right? It's people who say, oh, and now I'm a coaching company. So there is that. There's been a lot of absorption, and it's like any other situation. I live in the desert. We get a lot of rain at one time. It pools for a while, right? Until it can slowly seep into the ground. And I think that's maybe more of where we're at. I think, organizations that hire external coaching companies or individuals are also shifting, right? They're expanding their talent development. I'm air quoting this, nobody can see me, but their talent development teams so that they're not always paying the external, right? So there's a couple of different things. I feel like there's, organizations doing internal work and also saturation. But the question, right, that everybody who's listening is probably asking themselves, so what do you do, right? We can't change the problem, and we can try and come up with a solution, right? But, there are people I know that are very reliant on working for a company that's providing clients to them on a consistent basis. And if that stops happening, slowly then suddenly you're like, uh-oh, now what do I do?
Well, look, I've been through probably all the feelings, all of the journey with companies that I've contracted to as a coach. And so there have been times when the work has been flowing through, overflowing, and clients have been plentiful. Clients group coaching, the pay packets are bulging, and everything's looking rosy and wonderful. And then it can all turn on a dime and just go to almost nothing within the company that I've been with for years. Probably within months, it went from pretty much a full roster to enough to sort of be okay, but not really that good. To a point where it's like, well, is this going to carry on? And that was the question all along. And to be honest, it still is. I still do some work for them, and I have no idea how long that will go on for. But whilst it's there, I'll keep doing it. But I can't rely on that. It's not enough for starters, but I can't rely on that for my future. I just treat it as an extra now. Whereas this was once at one point the main source of my income.
Well, I think we learn our lessons through experience, right? So I had an experience where I moved across the country, and at the time when I moved, it virtual wasn't a thing. It was not, remote work was not a thing. So I had concerns about how I was going to continue my business, and I was hired by a company similar to the one you worked for, and I thought this is fabulous and this is great until it isn't. For whatever the reason, it dries up, the company shifts, whatever goes on. And I think the lesson came to light for me. So I'm not saying to people that if you're working for a company right now and you're getting clients, when you have full roster, good for you. But I feel like in such a, oh, I can't find the word, but I don't want to say volatile because that sounds over too negative. But when you're in a growing industry, and we've talked about this from 2019 to 2025, I think the coaching industry increased by over 500%. Over 500%. Now, COVID had something to do with that, and now everybody wants to be and do and whatever. But I think for me, my solution has been, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. That's just for me. I have to be solution-based. And like you said, oh, they throw me things here and there, but I can't rely on it. Well, then as a business owner, you have to decide. So what do I do with that? What happens? It's like getting fired slowly.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Here's how I look on it. It's a comfortable position for many people to be in because you do not have to do all the work of getting the clients yourself. And that can be a lot of work.
Sure.
Creating client flow and keeping that going on an ongoing basis requires a certain amount of effort. But as a coach working in one of those organizations, that no matter what level you're at, you could be making a lot more money if you were doing this for yourself in your own business, because you will never get a coaching rate that matches up to that. And for obvious reasons, not because people are being tight-fisted with it, but because that's how business works. They are doing all the work of handing you the clients. You are essentially passively just receiving them and then working with those clients. And your active part is where you engage and help clients.
Well, trade-off. Yeah, there's a trade-off.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. But the whole thing is there's a level of professional passivity that means you don't have full control over your business, and you never will. Even when you own your own business, you don't have complete control.
Yeah.
But you working for another organization, you will never have that control, especially when you're in a contractor situation where they don't have to provide you work. They're not obligated to. If it's there and you're available and you want to do it, great. Everyone's happy and you get the rates that have been agreed. But there's no guarantees and no control on your end. You can't turn up the taps when you want more work and turn them down when you want a break. You have no control. You just have to work with whatever bones they throw you.
Yeah. No, listen, again, I think there's benefits to it. I think if you're somebody who doesn't want to really grind through the coaching process or as a profession, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's wrong with picking up some, and it's all individual. Before I even say this, because I'm thinking of myself, and people might be listening and saying, "She's out of her mind. I love this. I get 5 or 10 clients a week, and that's perfect for me." So this isn't for you. We're not necessarily speaking to that, but even those 5 or 10 might start to dissipate. They might start to dissolve. And I think that the truth of this conversation is about keeping yourself as in control as you can be and as empowered as you can be, so that as you're getting fired slowly, because that's the focus, is that it is going away. This isn't, are you okay with only 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever you're getting? We're not talking about when everybody's fat, dumb, and happy. We're talking about the current landscape is changing, and it's probably going to continue. I don't see any slowdown in the shift that's happening. You said earlier, this isn't new, but at the same time, I feel there's been more of an increase and a more obvious increase lately. And I've heard it, you've heard it, right? We've been having these conversations. So again, the question then becomes, you say to yourself, how do I say it? I want to remain a coach, right? I think that's even a question people ask themselves, right? When things start to slow down and they see how difficult it is or options maybe seem limited, what do I do? What do you do?
Yeah. And so I think it starts with an honest self-examination of what do you want? What do you want here? Because you do have to check in with yourself. Are you willing to go it alone in the coaching world? And if you are, that's going to mean some things will change, that you have to move away from the sort of passivity of receiving clients from an organization and go to actively finding those clients for yourself and generating lead flow. And it's quite a different element of your business, because that actually becomes a very significant part of what you do. Sure. Where you might just want to sit back and coach, and that's what you really want to do, which is true of probably most coaches. And so I'd say this, if you're not prepared, if you want to sort of go that path, but you don't really want to do all the prospecting and stuff to generate leads, it's not going to go well.
Gee, are you laughing, John? Why are you laughing? You don't even know. That was a little sarcastic laugh on John's part. If you want to, come over to the dark side.
It's just to understand that it's just not going to be instantaneous. That it's not going that flow of clients isn't going to suddenly magically be replaced. Is going to require a significant proportion of your time, energy, and probably money to some degree to get out there and be attracting the kind of clients that you really want to have. That's if you even have that level of clarity. And we did talk about this last time, as I was starting a coaching business. You're kind of in that position of, well, you've been a coach, but you haven't had as such a coaching business. You've had a coaching contract. So if you haven't actually had your own coaching business before, this is going to be a bit of a different experience. Are you really willing to do it? Because if you're not, you might be better served by other options that might even involve going to work for someone else in some way, shape, or form, and even if that's not office based.
Of course, but that's what we're talking about. The first thing you have to do is make a decision and say, am I really passionate about coaching? And maybe this isn't ideal, but I see what's coming, even if it's not here yet. So that could actually be a positive. That could be a really great opportunity for you to say, let me reassess. And I don't know, there's so many options, right? You could, if your contract allows, you could work for multiple companies at one time. And maybe the combination of dribs and drabs will fill your plate. Or some other combination. And so again, even if you think or know that at some point the company that you're working for is going to dry up, or what they're giving to you is going to dry up, it is that opportunity while you have something happening, which this is the benefit. We talked about this last time we spoke. We said it's hard to start a business from scratch, especially coaching, competition. And if you're not financially prepared, that right there could just shoot you out of the equation completely, just because of necessity. So maybe this is an opportunity to say, wait, I have some income. And while I had this, let me start looking at what my options are. Do I want to try and be a bona fide business and do this full time on my own? Do I want to change what type of coaching I do? Whatever that is, right? It's a very individual, I think, decision. You and I have talked about this a million times, especially about, 12, 15 months ago. We started talking about multiple buckets so that as landscapes change and business opportunities change, we're not at the mercy of all of those changes, right? That's really what you want to do, is you want to prepare yourself for, I mean, listen, if you have a job and you're getting paid and you lose your job, you might go, oh my gosh, what do I have to do here? Again, with the coaching industry, it's usually a slower death. But maybe it's not going to die completely. Maybe it's just, hey, this is all we have and this is what we're doing and this is our new business model. You have an opportunity to shift what you're doing. And I think making those plans ahead of time, or having a plan B or an exit strategy, if you will, makes a very big difference on your mindset, right? So that when you start to make changes, you're not tying up or anything. I don't want to go down in the Titanic and not have a lifeboat because people are going to be grabbing at it. You don't want to be that person in the water grasping at anything that comes your way. Desperation is not a good look for anybody. So be more proactive, obviously, than maybe reactive. That was a lot.
I'll say so. I mean, if you at least have the clarity on what you want to do for yourself as a coach, if you've already pretty well established, this is the kind of coach that I do, this is who I work best with, these are the problems that I help people the best on, great, you know how to move forward. If not, then this is definitely an opportunity for you to take a look through the people that you've been working with, maybe review coaching notes or just go through your client list and see, who do I really like working with? And what was it about them that I really liked working with? I've seen that from myself with my old client list. It gave me a very clear picture of the people who I got the best results with and who I actually really enjoyed working with. That made it much more apparent to me of, all right, that's probably the kind of coaching I should be focusing in on. And that's exactly what I've done. And so that could be a position that you find yourself in now, and say that there is an opportunity there. And there may be more than one thing. So it's going to be up to you thinking, well, which one of these is maybe you want to make more money. Which one of these has the greatest earning potential? Which one of these has the greatest fulfillment potential for me? Am I going to feel happiest and fulfilled doing? Now, these are important questions to be asking yourself if you haven't really thoroughly considered them before, because just working with client after client that gets put to you, great, you've been able to do that and you can probably work well with many, many different clients.
Sure.
But there's always going to be those clients who you work just that bit better with.
You know, it's so interesting that you say that, because I think when I got into coaching initially, I guess if we put a title to it, you would have referred to me as a life coach. Okay. But the truth is now not that I don't coach people on their lives, right? I'm an executive coach. I generally work with first level managers up into and beyond the C-suite. And that really kind of happened organically. So I didn't do that intentionally. It just happened. So now I can look back at it and say, who knew? And I have the opportunity. Do I want to stay there or not? And I say to myself, absolutely I do. Because I know that when I was life coaching and people would just trying to throw something random out there topic wise, but why can't I clean my bathroom? Why am I procrastinator? That is partly coaching, but that was to me, the higher level challenges. I'm not saying that you don't go into the person, the human, because I say this, we don't have professional challenges. We have personal challenges that show up professionally. So every single time it always goes back, but there's just a different focus. That this is where I want to sit. This is now, instead of it organic and by default, this is my intentional, this is my choice. So and I had to come to this space because there were changes being made in where I sat as a coach that I had zero control over. I don't really want to give away that much control over my own destiny anymore. But that was something that I had to come to on my own. So definitely a great opportunity, but listen, watch, look for the writing on the wall. How do you even know?
You probably I think people tend to get a sense, right?
Yeah.
I think people tend to get a sense of the way things are headed. And we both know about this. But
yes, we do.
Yeah, you may or may not be completely correct. And time will tell whether your intuition or your sense actually bears out. Yeah. But the thing is, are you going to allow that to come up for you and not do anything about it? Because the possibility is that you find yourself in a situation where that does become the reality and you're scrambling around and maybe even in a sort of desperate state because you have to suddenly plug a gap in your income.
Right.
And how are you going to afford anything? There's much further. If you have the ability right now and if you're not in that position right now, then you
Yes.
are in a position where you can be, oh, that might be what's coming up. You have a chance to be ready for it and be proactive. If you were coaching one of your clients in a similar position, you would tell them to do the same thing.
Sure.
So be your own best coach here and be proactive about this, and at least start taking some steps towards looking at what it could look like to have your own business and what needs to happen to help shift you into bringing in more of your own clients.
Right.
Even if you do end up with a consistent trickle from that company over time that never really ends, great, but you are making up for whatever shortfall stuff in the meantime. If you're in the position where where the rug has been pulled from under you and the clients are gone and your income is gone too, I'd say this: the first thing is not to panic, even though it feels like the world is falling apart. You will get through this. You'll find a way through it. But if you go out to try and find clients with an energy of desperation and neediness, you are only ever going to push them away.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. Be proactive. Even if right now anybody who's listening is like, I work for a company, everything is fine and wonderful. Maybe it's just a quick heads up for you to kind of do an assessment for yourself and say, if this were gone, if this were pulled out from under me tomorrow, am I prepared in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah. And I say this for those coaches as well. For God's sake, increase your rates.
Oh gosh.
Because
yes.
if you're charging what the coaching company was charging, because you think that's what that's what they were paying you. Do you even know what the clients were paying to have the option to work with you?
No.
This is what I look at, because in many cases, if you're replacing those kinds of rates, you only need one or two clients to replace the income that you've lost.
Sure.
If you actually put yourself to the kind of rates that you should be charging in those sorts of scenarios. And that makes things look very different. That's why I say don't panic. If you're in that situation, don't panic. Just focus yourself on being relaxed and centered and attracting the right kinds of clients. And I would still say, don't take on a client who you wouldn't take on if you weren't in this situation. Even if the money's kind of tight, if you can help it, if you're in desperate, dire need of, and you just have to say yes to someone who seem like a bit of a jerk, okay, make your choice. But if you can avoid it, if you think I think I can get by without that, just about get by without it, because they're not going to solve your problems for you. They're just going to become a pain in the ass and make you think, is this the best I can do? Is this the best kind of client I can attract? You're not going to get great results with them. You're not going to want to carry on working with them. In fact, you're probably going to want to sack them when you're in a more stable position. So don't put yourself through it in the first place.
I think that the key here is that I don't know. I'm actually thinking about this to myself, saying, when people want to transition into coaching or become a coach, I don't know if most people say, oh, let me go work for a coaching company, or if they give it a go on their own first. And I feel like a lot of people, because it is hard and difficult, I'm making this up. I didn't even look up the statistics. It's just peers, right? I'm basing this solely on my experience with people that I have met who are coaches. And I don't even know if one of you actually intentionally started a coaching business on their own. Like they did something, they went and let me go work. They used working for a coaching company or a company that offers coaching services as a result of feeling like, well, I need something. Let me at least stay in the same tunnel. And that's what we don't want to do, right? We don't want to get stuck in that space, because the truth is that's not what your intention really was. It just was something that maybe satisfied or fulfilled a necessity, a need. Yeah. So I don't know. I think about it, just popped into my head. I was like, everybody I know that's a coach didn't intentionally say I'm becoming a coach. It just didn't happen that way. And most of you I met actually while working for other companies that offered coaching services. And 99% of you don't work for those companies anymore. So it's just interesting to me, right? Maybe it's not that you have to wait for the market to dry up. so to speak, but to really say to yourself, what John said in the very beginning. Go back to your why and your vision. Why did you start working for a company? And again, there's no judgment. If you're doing well and you're happy, have at it, because I did it and I was happy for a period of time. And I don't know if I would have become who I am if things didn't shift and change. I can't even, I don't know how long that would have lasted. But I think at the end of the day, because John and I are telling everybody, hey, the market's shifting, right? Not just in the United States and not just in the UK or in Europe. It's changing. Pay attention to the fact that it's changing and start, again, you don't have to put together the bunker in case coaching Armageddon happens, but start to think about what things will look like for you in a year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Are you somewhat prepared for any shift that might happen? That's really all it is. I don't know if we could actually address each individual's challenges. I mean, we can't really do that, but pay attention.
I put it this as well. I mean, I think the whole time that I've ever worked with coaching organizations, I've always had my own private clients on the side as well. Mm-hmm. It's never been an issue. Haven't always let that be known, because it hasn't always been necessary to do so. And, if you have a handful of clients outside that, I think is probably a healthy thing. It's like, well, maybe all you really need to do is, if you're in that situation, is how do you turn up what has been more of a side option for you? How do you turn that up a little bit? What can you do there? Can you, if you have some people that you've been working with, get referrals from them. Other people that you've worked with before who you maybe could go back to and work with privately without causing any contractual or ethical issues there as well.
Sure.
That might be possible too. So I think there's a lot of things you could probably look at that would probably help see you through the transitionary period if you're gonna make that move. But yeah, I think for most people, it's just being that little bit more proactive and saying, do you really want to wait until sort of either you're turning the lights out or they have and everything has dried up before you take action here? Probably not. So maybe take some action now and at least start creating some plans for how things can be going forward. Agreed. Or for what your options are. So that you can think, because I think you have many of them, but it's much easier to see them and review them when you're not in survival mode, when you're not yet in panic stations. So take that opportunity now. Also, I'll say this, I think it's easy, especially if you've been with an organization like that for a long time, sometimes you can end up undervaluing your coaching because you've only ever been sort of paid certain amounts for it. And you kind of get into that sort of mindset for it. And there may be even some identity shift that needs to be made because people haven't been coming to your coaching for you as such. They've been coming for the bigger organization or the name that you're attached to or whatever else. And so there may even be some identity shift that needs to work, some branding things that need to be focused on. And again, some self-examination for, can I step up and be that person who is the brand and is the business, rather than being the sort of what we call them, back end person, sort of behind the scenes, who sort of does some front end work, but they're not really front and center. It's a different position, and I think it does affect you psychologically for your value, your worth as a coach, and so you probably will find you're in a position where you do need to start valuing that more and charging what you're worth.
Well, I think that's a key for many people, is when they think about a shift away from what they're doing and how they're doing it, there's probably a little fear that shows up because they envision that they'd have to, and you said that you hit the nail on the head. Let's say you're making $100, I don't even know. Let's say you're making $100 a session being paid by a coaching company and they're supplying everybody to you. I would venture to guess, if you actually did the numbers and figured out what it would cost you to run a business, ultimately you do need to charge what you're actually worth. You need to know what you're actually worth, because there isn't a company on the planet that's going to pay you. If I had coaches working for me, they are not going to make what I make, because I have the overhead. I have the responsibility. I have the liabilities. So I think it's a very kind of freeing thought and say, oh, well, I could make I'm making this up, $300, $400, $500 a session. If I absorb all of the liability, oh, well, maybe it is worth it, right? It's just a different scale. And that should remove, I guess, some of that fear, just a little bit of it.
Yeah. It can definitely depend on the kinds of people that you've been working with as well. So if you've generally found yourself through those companies working with people who are kind of in the struggle bus a lot of the time and maybe can't always afford to stay in coaching, you're going to think that's what's out there. It's like, you think that's the world. That's what people are like. But that's not what everyone is like, because there's plenty of other people who are in situations where the clients that are coming through to them have plenty of money. Money's never really the question when it comes into whether they can afford their coaching or not. It's like, it's only ever that they get some value out of it. Are they benefiting from it? And there's many, many, many of those people. But we end up with this vision of what we think the world is like based on our own experience. And there's a chance to step outside of that experience and those limitations, because it is just, it's just limiting beliefs. That's all it is, because you think that's how the world is, and it's not. And if you really start to examine it, talk to other coaches, get yourself out into the world a bit more, expand your horizons, you'll see it's not. And I think even sitting down with ChatGPT or whatever AI system you like, and putting that sort of information in, saying, all right, this is the kind of coaching I want to do, this is the kind of business I think I want to have, looking at sort of standard industry based and things like that, and how experienced I am, what kind of rates would a coach like me be charging for a 6-month program or for consulting or those kinds of things? You'll start to see a different picture.
Absolutely.
Just to get some other answers, get some other input other than your history, your experience, which is limited and biased, unfortunately.
It is, and listen, it is absolutely limited and biased. And that's why John and I are talking about this with you today, because we've been there, we've done it. We've absolutely experienced it. So sounds good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This all comes from experience. I hope that's valuable to anyone who's in that situation. We'd love to hear from you if you are, and especially if this has been valuable or useful, or if there are questions coming up around this that we haven't answered that you'd like us to, or any other coaching business, coaching industry related questions that you have for us that you think might be good for us to discuss on the show, get in touch. For the meantime, I think we'll wrap it up here. Angie,
do you have a question for the coaching clinic?
Reach out on LinkedIn to connect with Angie and John.
Leave us a voicemail or video message and we will feature you on the show.
You can also leave up to 90-second voicemail for free on www.speakpipe.com/the Coaching Clinic podcast.
We'd love to hear from you.
See you next time.
Bye for now.